Are you ready to explore the exciting tech world like never before? Welcome to Better You, the podcast where we dissect the latest in business, technology, and startup trends, all with a keen focus on growth. So, buckle up and get ready to stay ahead of the curve. Let's make you a better you.
Karthik, welcome. It's great to have you on my podcast. I got introduced to you by a mutual friend, and she speaks very high of you. When you and I we spoke offline, it was very clear that there's a part of you, the expertise that you bring to the table, AI and data centers, and many other things that we're going to unwrap in next 30 minutes or so, is going to add a lot of flavor for the audience to understand what exactly happens behind the scene when it comes to building up an amazing data center. So, Karthik, over to you. Introduce yourself, and then based on that, we can unwrap this conversation.
Thank you, Neeraj. Thank you for giving this opportunity. Have a great conversation around this. I'm a postdoctoral researcher at Temple University. I specialize in water treatment, water purification, and applications. So anything related to water, I specialize in it. And my experience has been with regards to membranes, conductive membranes, and then also working with startups that are in healthcare space and in technological spaces.
That's amazing. And again, when you and I we talked this week, you did mention the membrane, and I got stuck to it because I did my mechanical engineering. And
Mhm.
during the mechanical engineering, and when I was working on the lathe machine, there's a lot of cooling and heating happening. So I had to figure out a way to optimize that heating so that I don't burn those tools and it doesn't cause any issues. What I want to do is I want to take the conversation in a way where if you can help us to understand what does it mean membrane in your world, and then we will come back to that conversation, bring that conversation back to the data centers. So help us to understand if you unwrap this membrane piece.
So I think membrane is in academic space is a fancy word for a very thin filter. It can be polymeric, it can be metal based, it can be ceramic based, but it's pretty much a very thin piece of a material that helps filter water or even your coffee filter. That's a kind of membrane. Even wines and juices we make that uses a filtration process. They use membranes so that we get that clear, unpulpy juice, right? So membrane is pretty much a filter. It helps you filter out impurities from water. Depending on the size, you can do it at different levels. And then um, there are more advanced processes as well with regards to membrane in membrane itself that help you use it in different levels. For example, get extra ultra pure water in healthcare space or silicon industries, right? Or get use the sunlight to get membrane distillation processes done, which would give you pure water for potable uses. Even like when you're camping, we buy these filtration membrane systems which you kind of hang up and wait for the water to filter out. So we have been using membranes forever. I mean, you'll be surprised to know that Egyptian hieroglyphics have depiction of membranes there. And I think as we move on, as we keep advancing, these membranes are becoming more and more mainstream because of the water demand, growing population, need for water, clean water for example, data centers, AI-based applications, and almost every aspects of our life. Yeah, so membrane is pretty much a filter where you use it almost every day and then we don't even realize.
Yeah. I think if I'm not wrong, I still remember that in my school, in my college in India, there was a foundry shop. In that foundry shop, I was building some casts, and those casts, they had to go through excessive heating. And I still remember that we used to put layers of very thin stuff. I don't know what, let's call it membrane, thin stuff on various tools to avoid the huge damage on it. So let me understand, as per the layman, or layperson, let's say in a simple words, aluminum foil, can that be treated as membrane for many things that we do in our regular life?
Well, if you are trying to prevent certain things to when you use your aluminum foil, right? If you're trying to prevent certain things from entering into your, say, whatever you're covering it with, but you're allowing other things to pass through, then yes, it's a membrane. It's pretty much a membrane. There are metallic membranes. It's sieving, sieving we do every day. It's a membrane operation. on a much more larger pore size scale. But exactly, that's what it is. That's what's happening. When we use an aluminum foil, we're trying to prevent heat and kind of moisture to go out. But it's pretty much, you're preventing certain things to go out, but still okay for other things to come in.
Very nice. Yeah. All right. Let's talk about the now main topic of this conversation. So let me give you a context before I start the conversation. A long time ago, I think 15 years ago, or so I was working for a data center company, and at
Mhm.
the time, AWS, Amazon, AWS was there, and Azure, which is a Microsoft cloud, Azure and GCP did not exist at all. So we had two options. Um, AWS public cloud or public hosting, private hosting, private data centers. So I was part of a company, a startup where we were hosting servers, and then on top of those servers, we are providing the compute and applications and many other things to our customers. And at the time, a lot of startups, a lot of companies, they were moving away from AWS to our hosting because there were a lot of unknowns in the AWS billing. So during those days, I did end up spending a lot of time on designing some solutions on the private hosting, private data centers. Now, during those days, as I was building the P&L for my customers, that how much it's going to cost to host their applications, and then many other things comes into the picture. There was a variable which was a cost of the server. Under that, to unwrap the whole conversation, there were many other things, and then this is where I understood that how important the cooling and heating for data centers is, because it can actually increase your bill or it can reduce your bill if you have a very optimized way to cool the data centers, right? And yeah, I still remember during those days of Meta slash Facebook, they built their data centers very close to some rivers so that it's easy for them to transport the water. Now I was new at the time in my career, in the data center career, so I was like trying to understand exactly what was happening. But now, because of the AI applications, because of blockchain, crypto mining, and many other things, there's a significant improvement, and also investments are happening how to design data centers effectively. So I think I want to bring the conversation back to you, that how, let's say, I am a founder of a company, and now I want to host my applications. I want to pick some data centers to implement those applications. What are the different things? Of course, I may not need this in daily life, but what are the different things I should be thinking about?
Right. So I think one of the key things, the first thing that comes to my mind is energy, right? Even if all these cooling operations are taking place, you need to pump that water in, or you need to pump that air into your place, right? So coincidentally, a huge amount of data centers that we have in the US, they are in that southwestern California, Arizona, Texas kind of region, right? And weirdly enough, when you consider power, it's kind of inexpensive compared to other places in the US in that region, but cooling is an issue. It's less humid and water is less there, right? So the question as a founder you would have is that how can I keep my data center operational at efficient levels? And at the same time, how can I make sure that I'm not skimping on quality, right? Cooling processes, all of that, you have quality control it. So I think the first thing that comes when it in regards to cooling is that how are you cooling, right? You have air, you have water. We have both kind of data centers that use that cooling process, right? But all of these require a filtration process, a membrane that needs to filter if you're using air, you need to make sure that no dust is going in, because a server rack won't be happy about dust in the systems. And then if you're using water, same thing applies. It's like I need to make sure that the water is the cleanest water possible. Otherwise, you're going to have salt formations everywhere around your data center, which will eventually lead to pipe leaks, and then that water is going to fall on the server. So I think initially the first thing has to be with regards to cooling is that, hey, what kind of source, air or water, what am I going with? And then if I'm going with, say, air, how much it's going to cost me? With water, how much it's going to cost me? What kind of filters I'm using? What filtration process? A fun fact is that if you have like a 5 to 6 kilowatt data, like a server rack at a data center, it requires around 3,000 cubic meters of air, okay, per hour for cooling. And compare that to water, you need 2 meter cube per hour. So there is like a huge difference in what you use, right? I think back then, like about 20, 25 years ago, all these companies were using like an air conditioning unit, like, the general one you have everywhere. Since then, Facebook, Meta is one of the forefronts. You would be surprised to know that they are using an extremely advanced filtration system that cools down air through membranes. So they're using water and air to cool down the air using a membrane, and then through that membrane process, they're making sure that they have cool air going in, filtered cool air. And at the same time, they're also ensuring that the water they are using for this membrane process, it goes through another membrane process that makes sure that they are reusing the water again and again. So they are helping the community by, reusing the water, not taking the water away from where they are. And then they are also making sure that the energy and the water usage costs that are associated are also reduced.
Yeah. You're absolutely correct because I do remember now, as part of that Meta news at the time, it was literally, I think, 10, 12 years ago, where they said they're building more optimized data centers for addressing this traffic coming into Facebook. And during the time, they did mention that there is a way they are reusing the water which is being used to cool down the data center. And that was actually, of course, I didn't go into the details, but that was very interesting, like how they are environmental conscious. And not only Meta, right? Like there is so many other data center companies like Equinix and many others, right? They have built some amazing tech behind the scenes to make sure that the data centers are optimized. Karthik, I want to actually understand when it comes to membranes, are there different kind of membranes or it just one flat membrane?
Well, if I show it to you physically, right, um, they all look the same. It's basically a sheet of polymer or a sheet of ceramic. They kind of look very similar. It, I would say they look like a sheet of plastic, pretty much a lot of times, right? But on a I would say microscopic level or even on an atomic level, they are made up of different things. Some of them make them could prevent fluid to go through. So a lot of times they're used in roofing for data centers. If you go to a data center, your membranes everywhere.
I know. Uh, uh, I worked for a company called CenturyLink, and CenturyLink has a huge data center presence in Midwest. So I was in St. Louis. My little cube used to be on top of a data center, and down whenever we went downstairs, we could hear this large banging sounds coming from those server rooms. It's crazy. Yeah.
And then so depending on what your needs are. So for example, I think a lot of data centers still today have like 7 different water treatment steps before they can be used for cooling, right? And but if you use membrane technology, which a lot of bigger ones are doing that, it's just one step. You filter and you have clean water, right? And then it also operationally reduces your cost because less people are kind of handling each process. It makes it more easier to go through. So yeah, depending on your needs, you can make them conductive. You can make them only have like vapor pass through it. You can make sure that water passes but salts are left behind. It's very modular, right? It's very versatile. You can make it the way you want based on the application you have. For example, one of these owners of a data center, they are in a region where they have like saline waters, right? They need they have water, but like it's all salty and they can't directly use it. It just needs one membrane system which desalinates this water, or a conductive membrane system that prevents scaling of these salts and a long-term usage. And that helps them use clean water, recycle clean water, and save costs, operational requirements, all of those things.
Wow, amazing. And I was mentioning just now to you the crypto mining and AI applications, many other things. The demand of the energy is going up, and in the same way, I'm sure that the demand for the membranes is also rising because nobody behind the scenes is talking about membranes, right? In your world, what are you seeing? And then what are the different solutions do you think that uh, companies and this data center companies they can implement to optimize further?
Right. So I think the advent of AI, especially like, this boom in chip industry, and also like this huge need for storehouses for data, right? Warehouses for data. That has definitely led to a boom in like two different sectors. I would say established companies like Microsoft, Google, they have dedicated water engineers now. So they are hiring people specifically to run these water-based facilities. And then when you come to like startup solutions, like the startup region, there are companies that are making membranes for specific, like they have special properties. Some companies are making conductive membranes. I specialize in conductive membranes. And then there are companies that are making these membrane-based cooling systems. So all in all, this AI boom has also led to a boom in the water-based, membrane-based industry.
So, Karthik, a question which I'm trying to understand: how expensive these membranes are?
So it really comes down to what are your cost generators, right, in a membrane, right? So the fabrication process of a membrane is not the most expensive part. It's pretty much like I don't know if you've seen how paper is made. They make like a pulp and then they spread it and let pretty similar process, and it can be a little bit more complicated if like you want specific properties, but still not very expensive, right? The expensive part which adds to the cost is the operational requirements. You need to make sure that the kind of water you are going to utilize, that is compatible with the membrane process you're going for, right? A good example would be, are you using rainwater? Then you don't need to worry too much because it's already a little bit more cleaner, right? Or are you getting water from, say, a well? Is it high in hard water, right? Are you getting it from sea? And
Yeah.
the second thing is the compliance part of it, right? A lot of companies, when they get this water and they treat the water, use it for cooling, what do they do afterwards? They need to make sure that they return it back to the way they found it. And that also adds the cost. But when you consider all of these costs, it is still less than these companies relying on municipalities and, establishments, private entities to buy water from them. Because here you are yourself responsible for, your water capabilities. You know exactly how much water you need, how much more you would require, and at the same time, you're also adding a community benefit where it's like, hey, we are cleaning the water. We are not reliant on the community. We are not taking water from people. And all of that adds in the cost, not adds, but like takes away from the cost. So I think the inexpensive part is the fabrication itself. The cost adding part is operational requirements, and that can be met too. Like, for example, like I mentioned, like the Southwest region is rich in energy, right? I don't think they have any issues with energy.
Yeah.
Suppose a plant in Arizona could easily use a solar membrane system to treat water, and they reduce costs even more. And then, say, a plant in California could easily use seawater and produce a streamline of salt as well, which, if they want, they can put it back into the sea, or they can sell it. But it's a revenue stream at that point. So there are different ways, and I mean, in the market, you can do all of this. There are companies that make these modular membrane treatment facilities for you. I mean, Google and all of these companies are also investing in the research for these membranes.
Yeah, I think, and that brings up the question which I am pondering listening to you. We all talking about AI applications. How the modernization within membranes it's working out? Are you guys using any AI within membrane? Or it just same again? In my head when I picture membrane, it's just a physical layer of something which sits between, as you said, two racks, and it just allows the heat exchange or whatever the use case is, right? But monitoring of those membranes, many other things which goes behind the scene. Are you guys leveraging any AI?
Absolutely. I think AI has been a boon, really, at different levels. So
Yeah.
I think at the fabrication level, is helping kind of figure out what kind of formulations would work best for a certain application,
Oh.
right? So there are polymer blends that people have not even think about, which AI is helping think about. And then, of course, you test them out and see if they will be good or not, because again, AI is based on the data you're using. At the other level, it's AI and membranes are kind of going hand in hand, which is they need chips, and for chips you need ultra pure water. So these AIs are helping think of what would be the best membrane that could be used for that ultra pure water. And then at the same time, the process control can also be done through AI. Like based on the process parameters, you can figure out that, hey, your membrane is kind of scaled up now. Maybe you want to have a membrane which removes that, and AI automatically figures that out for us um, when once we put the parameters into the system. So these systems are becoming smarter thanks to AI, and also helping in making new membranes as does.
Very nice. Yeah. In US itself, what are the different companies, or maybe outside of US too, who are leaders in this membranes, providing this material and solutions to data centers?
I think so. I know a few startups. I think the one that comes to my mind is like Active Membranes. They specialize in these conductive membranes that that prevent scaling, so you can use them long term, so they have a cost benefit,
Mm.
right? Other than that, there are bigger companies like Xylem, Evoqua that kind of have built facilities for you. Active Membranes does that as well. And then there are other institutional startups as well. Universities are getting into it. So I think Active Membranes is from UCLA. There are some from University of Washington, which I missed the name, but they also have like a conductive membrane product where it's a ceramic membrane, so you can apply high pressures and it'll be fine,
Yeah.
right? And then there are also municipalities that kind of are adopting this technology so that they can also have a higher client range so that, it automatically leads to more revenue generation.
Nice, nice. And do you know by any chance who's the leader in this area, like from the country wise? Is it US, Canada, or Europe, India, China?
I would say when it comes to this desalination membrane, I think the top five countries that just come to my mind based on my interaction with people. I've worked with a lot of these people. I think United States is up there. I think both the coast of US and even some Midwestern states are quite active in these. They have like dedicated research facilities for these, right? Israel comes to my mind, Saudi Arabia, Singapore,
Nice.
and then India is catching up, but I would not put them on top five because India is abundant with water, a lot of clean water. Here, the issue is that a lot of seawater is available, not readily fresh water is available. So research is more pushed forward in areas where they don't have easily available fresh water. Like you would see Israel, Saudi Arabia, and all these places, they have access to sea and they don't want to remove that salt out.
Yeah.
So you'll see a higher amount of membrane development there.
Got it. Yeah. Just curious, again, it's not my expertise, but how expensive these membranes are.
So I think, for example, depending on your operation, there are different types. One is like a flat sheet, flat sheet. There are spiral wound membranes. Depending on how much gallon of water you're pushing through. So, for example, if you're doing like a couple of gallons, which is a low scale operation, it can be it can be $100 to $200 just for the module, which will last you for years, right? And then depending if you're doing multiple modules, it can be and type of operation you want, the price changes based on that.
I see. Okay. And let's say as at home, if I want to experience or use membranes just for my own fun projects, is there a way to do something at home?
Absolutely. I would say you should use it for drinking water. And no, I would encourage that really. So I think I remember about 10-15 years ago back in India, I had an RO water system at home. I think it was, not sure the name, it was a different name, and I would not think too much about it. I was like, oh, it's an RO system, RO. I did not think about membranes back then before I actually got into them.
Mm.
Um, and membranes have shown to be removed. So a lot of pharmaceuticals, a lot of perfluorocompounds. These are compounds that don't break down very easily, can cause sickness. A lot of them have been characterized as carcinogens. Uh, Not a lot, majority of the water treatment plants do not have like a process to remove them at the moment, right? Because they're called emerging contaminants. They are still emerging. They are not established in a way. So as if you are at home, it's a good idea to have like a membrane module easily available. You can buy it on Amazon even at this
Wow.
point, and it requires minimal plumbing, and you can set it up at your home. I have friends who have newborns that have set it up at their homes, to get more cleaner water so that, they can ensure a healthy water standards.
Yeah. Hey, Karthik, let me throw you under the bus and you
Okay.
not to answer it. As the tariff war is going on, so new tariffs are coming in. And any of those tariffs, like on Mexico and China and Canada, does it impact the cost of membranes for US at all?
I think to some degree it can, right? A good amount of chemicals, right? These are polymers, they are chemicals end of the day, are made in China,
Oh,
right? So if there is a way to have those manufactured here or a tariff-friendly country where we don't have tariffs, sure, we can do that. But um, and then I think a good amount of membranes are, at least the advanced ones, are still manufactured in the US. It's the general use ones that you would buy on Amazon. Those are kind of manufactured in China, I would say. But then the majority of the advanced membranes and these companies are kind of set in California, Washington, that area, they are making them themselves. So if it's someone who wants them for a very specific function, these companies would be able to, and I don't think those prices would be impacted by the tariffs. But of course, there are other parts in a membrane. It's just not the flat sheet, the piping and all of that. So if you are setting it up for an operational use, I think other things, the pipes and the pressure gauge and things like that, they might add to the cost, but that would be a cost in any kind of system. It's not just for membrane, it would be any other cooling system, an AC, they're all made in South Korea.
Yeah.
So they are also tariff heavily. So I think in the current view, if you have a specialized application, I think you should be fine. If you are going for a more conventional application, there's a chance that costs will increase. But then you have to remember that it's increasing for everyone, for
Yeah.
everything.
Yeah. Yeah. Very good point. As we are coming to the closing of this episode, I actually want to talk about the future.
Mhm.
What are you seeing? You are involved in your research and you are working with so many future innovators in your group. What do you think the interest level from people in this particular field, and then also from the future point of view, innovation point of view, what do you think, where are we heading in this area?
Absolutely. So I think the startup or the new companies or even the established companies, they are picking up on it. They realize the versatility of these membranes. So I think within the last 5 years, you have companies and projects prop up that are using these membranes in batteries for lithium extraction, for in lithium ion batteries, for hydrogen production, for carbon capture. So because of their versatility and you can kind of modify them, make them modular, as a result of that, they're becoming a central thing in a good amount of energy fields, like energy related fields, health related fields, not just water. So based on what I see right now, I think they are going to be a central thing in the future. If the way hydrogen economy and all of these topics we see nowadays, if that's going to be a centerfold, then yeah, these membranes would be right there with us.
Yeah. Karthik, just the last question on the same topic before we depart from this episode. Quantum computing. Do you know by any chance if membranes has a huge role in quantum computing?
I think from what I understand, quantum computing, it's like a give and take relationship, I would say. Is quantum computing with help with making these membrane processes and even making membranes more affordable, easier, right? But at the same time, these membranes would be very vital in making sure that those quantum computing processes are taking place at their efficient temperatures.
Very nice. I see. Well, we still have a long way to go to quantum computing. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Awesome. Karthik, thank you so much for making time.
Thank you, Neeraj. Thank you for this opportunity.
All right. See ya.
You have a good day. Bye.
Thank you for tuning in to this episode of Better You. I hope you enjoyed our deep dive into today's topic and found some valuable insights to help you on your growth journey. If you liked what you heard, be sure to subscribe to the podcast so you never miss an episode. And don't forget to leave us a review and share Better You with your friends. Together, let's continue exploring the exciting world of tech and business. Until next time, stay curious, stay innovative, and keep growing.